Hello, everyone. Welcome to our National Citizenship Services Day virtual event hosted by PALCUS. We are really happy to have you all with us today because we get lots and lots of questions about the citizenship process, and we will be addressing some very specific topics today that hopefully speak to a lot of the questions that we get. Presenters today are Sabrina Brum from Portugal Solutions, Monique Kelly-Valance from Marie B. Kelly and Associates, and Nelson Ponta from Becoming a Portuguese Citizen, and Sandra Carapinha from Learn European Portuguese Online. They will be addressing not only certain paths to citizenship, but also Sandra will be talking about the CIPL language test, which is the requirement for getting citizenship through grandparents. Today's agenda, we will have 30-minute sessions. We'll try to get questions in with each session, but we also will have an open Q&A at the end. So if your question didn't get answered within the session that you were interested in, we will have an open Q&A at the end. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you want to type in a question, we're going to try and keep everybody on mute just for sound quality. Type in your question either into the chat or into the Q&A. And if you are watching on Facebook, type your question into the live feed. We'll be monitoring those questions as well, and we'll read out as many as we can. And then if you find this webinar useful and helpful and all the other webinars that we have had, I strongly encourage you to become, and I ask you to become a member of PALCUS. So not only do you get access to content like this and you enable us to have events like this, but there are a lot of really great membership benefits, right? You get members only newsletters and other content. You get featured in our member spotlight monthly newsletter. We will be launching a PALCUS Business Network newsletter where members will get priority feature. We will be launching a new Portuguese language discussion group that will be free for members. So it's available right now to members only. And it will be free. It'll be once a week where we get to practice our Portuguese. Invites to members only events. You get some free swag when you join. Who doesn't like swag? And of course, you will be supporting the only national organization serving the Portuguese American community. So if you want to become a member, you just visit our website, palcus.org, and there's a couple of different places you can click become a member, and we would love to have you. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we will jump into our first presentation with Sabrina Brum. Sabrina, take it away.
Hello, thank you, Angela, so much. Thank you, PALCUS, for inviting me to be here today. My name is Sabrina Brum. I'm one of the consultants from Portugal Solutions Professional Services. My partner, Marcia Souza DePont, and I opened Portugal Solutions about 2 years ago. We are based in Rhode Island, so we mainly serve the Rhode Island, Massachusetts area, but we've got clients all over the United States. Our main goal is to serve the Portuguese and Luso-American community. So we do a number of different services in our office, Social Security for Portugal, translations, powers of attorney for Portugal. And of course, one of the biggest things we do is Portuguese citizenship. So I am going to share my screen. You can see that. All right, awesome. So I'm going to be talking about Portuguese citizenship today. There are a bunch of different pathways to get the Portuguese citizenship, but we are going to be focusing on the two easiest ways, for lack of a better term, Portuguese citizenship applications through a parent or Portuguese parents, and then through a Portuguese spouse. So the easiest or the fastest way to get your Portuguese citizenship would be if one or both of your parents hold Portuguese citizenship. So if your parents were born in Portugal, if they became a Portuguese citizen, you can apply for your Portuguese citizenship through your parent. This is the fastest way to get the citizenship. It takes roughly 1 year, give or take, for the citizenship to be completed. I always tell clients right off the bat, if you've dealt with Portugal in anything, or if you're going to be dealing with Portugal, the most important thing to remember is patience. So there are a lot of applications being submitted all at the same time right now. Huge increase in applications the last couple of years. So processing times are getting bogged down for sure. We hand in our applications through Portuguese parents directly through the consulate, and the consulate is telling us right off the bat 1 year. If you're going to send it directly to Portugal, might take a little bit more than that, and that's if everything goes, perfectly well, no bumps along the road. So just expect, a year and a half for a typical Portuguese citizenship case. As I mentioned, Portuguese citizenship through parents can be processed through your local consulate if you have a good one available to you, or it can be handled directly in Portugal. So Portugal Solutions works with our local consulates in our area. We're really lucky. We've got Providence at our disposal, New Bedford, Boston, even New York and New Jersey aren't too far from us. I know, unfortunately, anybody that's over on the West Coast or somewhere in the middle of the US, you don't have as many consulates. So always feel free to look directly onto the IRN or Conservatorio websites. They'll have some good information on how to submit the application to, or you can go through a third-party organization like myself. So the necessary documents that you need if you are applying for Portuguese citizenship through your parents. Number one, most important, is a long form certified copy of your birth certificate. So you can get that at City Hall, Town Hall. You can order them online as well. So you'd be going through your state's vital records office. If you just, do a quick Google search, birth certificate, my state, you'll be able to pull up how to order it online. It's usually through the Vital Check website, so it's pretty quick, pretty easy. You'll also need a photocopy of a driver's license or state ID and a US passport or a valid passport for wherever your country is. And you will need Portuguese parents' information. So if they have a cartão cidadão, you can take a photocopy of that, which is the Portuguese ID card. If not, if they have any older Portuguese documents, like a Portuguese birth certificate, something like that, you can take a photocopy of it. If one of your parents is Portuguese and the other one is American or born in another country, for the non-Portuguese citizen parent, you're going to need a long form certified copy of their birth certificate as well. We always recommend too that you get an identification card, passport, something like that for the American born or foreign born parent too. Just makes the process a little bit easier. And you do need to register your parents' marriage if they were not married in Portugal or if their marriage is not registered in Portugal. I'm actually going to come back in a couple of hours and talk about why it's important to register marriages and divorces in Portugal. So if you want a little bit more information on that, feel free to tune in. I believe it's in 2 hours or so. I'll come back and talk about that in a little bit more detail. But essentially, if at the time you were born, your parents were married, you have to register a marriage in order for you to be able to get your citizenship through your parent. So that is what you need for your Portuguese parents.
Sabrina, can you just clarify also which documents need to be apostilled? We get that question a lot.
Yeah, so it depends on how you're going to be applying for the citizenship, is the quickest answer. But if you are going to be applying through a consulate that is not in your area, so if you live, let's say, in California and you're applying through one of the other consulates, the embassy, your birth certificate has to be apostilled. Any American parent's birth certificate needs to be apostilled, and the marriage certificate as well. And an apostille is simply a seal that goes on top of any public documents. So birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, court orders, something like that, signatures of state officials. It's a seal or an authentication that goes on top of any one of those documents, just authenticates it, says that it's, a real document, it's a true copy. You can get that from your Secretary of State in any of your states. So if you want to do just a quick Google search and look up apostille and then whatever the state is that you were born, if it's through a birth certificate, you're able to find it fairly easily. It's usually $5 to $15. They come in pretty quickly. So next we have the application through a Portuguese spouse. So this is the second easiest one, for lack of a better term. It is a little bit longer than the process if you're going through a Portuguese parent. And what is the qualifier here to be able to apply through a Portuguese spouse is you have to be married to a Portuguese citizen for at least 3 years. So if you've been married for at least 3 years, you are eligible to apply for your Portuguese citizenship through your spouse. It is a longer process than through your parents. Typically, it takes between 2 to 4 years for that to get completed. What happens is this is actually processed in Portugal, so it has to go directly to the conservatórias. The consulates in the US do not handle this. And what you do is once you submit the application, the conservatory is going to respond back to you with a tracking code. It's going to come from the IRN website. And with that tracking code, you're able to copy paste it into the website with the link they give you. And you can see where everything is in the process. It's going to show step 1 through 7. And right at the bottom of the website, it says that the process is taking between 24 to 29 months. So they're telling you right off the bat, a normal, everything is perfect process is going to take at least 2 years. We actually just received an email from the IRN because we were checking up on someone's process. And they said, do not email us. We are just getting to processes that were started in July and September of 2021. So again, patience is of the essence if you're trying to deal with Portugal, especially if you are dealing with citizenship applications. So the necessary documents that you need if you're applying through a Portuguese spouse are pretty similar to the ones that you would need if you're applying through a parent. So long form certified copy of your birth certificate. And this does have to have the apostille all the time. So like I mentioned, you just want to go online, search Secretary of State, apostille, whatever state you were born in. Super easy for you to get it. It's pretty fast and it's very cost effective. And then you will need a photocopy of driver's license or state ID and a valid passport. And then the most important thing that you're going to need here is the spouse's Portuguese identification. So if you have a cartão de cidadão or a Portuguese ID card for your spouse, great, photocopy of that is good, but you're also going to have to register your marriage in Portugal if it is not registered already. So you can do the marriage registration either through your local consulate or any of the conservatórias in Portugal. And once your marriage is registered in Portugal, it's actually going to update on the Portuguese citizen's record, for lack of a better word. So when you go to pull a birth certificate for that spouse, if the marriage is already registered, on the back of the birth certificate, it's going to be updated and it's going to say this person was married on this day to whoever. So you're going to need a copy of that. We always recommend a certified copy because it makes things easier, the conservatória, but just as long as you have a copy of that birth certificate with the marriage registration, super easy. You can apply for that online, or you can reach out to your local consulate and you have the conservatórias, they'd be able to get it for you. The last document that you want to get would be the FBI criminal background check. And I always tell people, make sure that that is the last thing that you get once you're ready to send all the documents, because the FBI background check is only good usually for 6 months. So once you have everything done, marriage is registered, you've got everything ready to go, that's when you would apply for the FBI background check. Again, a fairly simple process. You have to get fingerprints done, send it off to the FBI, and hopefully they come back saying that you are not a federal criminal. So you can send that off to Portugal, and then that would be most of what you need. It is important to note, though, if you belong to the military in the US or law enforcement, that may impact your ability to become a Portuguese citizen if they know about it, is the caveat. So if you are working currently for the government, law enforcement, military, it's something that may have an impact on your citizenship. It may just prolong it a little bit more because they have to do a little bit more digging. So keep that in mind as well. Then the last thing that you're going to need would be the proof of connection to the Portuguese community. So it is not just enough to be married to a Portuguese citizen for 3 years to be able to get the Portuguese citizenship. Essentially, Portugal is looking for the reason why. Why do you want to become a Portuguese citizenship? What is your interest in Portugal? So a couple of different ways that you can, prove that to Portugal or explain that to Portugal. The easiest, of course, would be if you own any bank accounts in Portugal, property ownership, land ownership, if you have a fiscal number or a contribuinte, an NIF number. If you have any of those things, you just want to provide proof. So make photocopies of any of the information that you would have. If you don't own property or banks or anything like that, it's okay. The next best thing would be proof of membership to a Portuguese organization. So any local clubs that you belong to, local churches,
PALCUS is a good one.
PALCUS, yeah. Definitely become a member of PALCUS if you're not one already. Aside from doing all of these amazing things that PALCUS does, including the webinars and all of the other benefits that Angela just talked about a little while ago, PALCUS will also provide you with a letter if you ask them for one, saying that you are a PALCUS member, and that is a huge help when applying for your Portuguese citizenship. So definitely consider that as an option, especially if you're watching here today. You already know about PALCUS, so you should become a member. And then we always recommend as well including some kind of a personal letter. So just write about your experience as a person who, is not Portuguese, has no Portuguese ancestry, or Portuguese ancestry is too far.
How much you love the culture, how much you love the food, all that, right?
If your favorite food is bacalhau or you love pastéis de nata, talk about it. If you've traveled to Portugal, if you grew up in a Portuguese community. And then PALCUS also just came out with the report saying how many Portuguese people live in all the states from the census. So if you're in one of those top 10 states with Portuguese, population, definitely include that in your personal letter. If you're from California, include that information. We have the most Portuguese people in, the US. So it's definitely something good to include. And that is it. If anybody has any questions, my contact information is here. You've got my email, my phone number. Feel free to reach out to us separately if you're interested in working with us, or feel free to drop some questions in the comments.
Thank you, Sabrina. So I can speak to the marriage one personally because I just completed that process. So I have a couple of pointers for people, if you will, because we did have a question through Facebook about whether or not the FBI background check had to be apostilled. And the way that mine came in the mail, it was sealed. So you can't open it, right? So you just send it sealed. You don't need to get it apostilled or anything like that. However, because mine took so long, as you said, it's taking 2 to 4 years, even though I got mine within 6 months of sending it, by the time they were reviewing it, they actually said, hey, we need an updated one. So I would say just be prepared that you may have to do it again. And that's just, the breaks, right?
Suggestion to people when you first submit it, you don't have to have an apostille, because unfortunately what is happening, and it's what we're seeing with, I would say, 8 out of 10 of my cases, is by the time they do get to reviewing your case, which is usually a year and a half later, unfortunately, is when we start to see the process moving from step 1 to 2, 2 to 3. A lot of the documents are out of date, is what they say. So sometimes we can convince them to use it, sometimes not. You don't have to have the apostille on it. If they do ask for it, though, once they start reviewing the documents, which is a very likely possibility, that's when we suggest that clients do get the apostille on the FBI background check, just so you don't have to request it twice, because getting the apostille from the federal government is a little bit more difficult than from your local state office.
Okay. We have a question here from Melanie. Is there still a language requirement for marriage or parents? And I believe there's not, right?
No, there is not anymore. For parents, they haven't had the language requirement for a while. Through marriage, that's a fairly recent thing. No language requirement at all.
Okay. Okay, so we have the session on grandparents coming up. So all the questions about grandparents, we will be answering then. Is the processing time shortened if you go to Lisbon directly?
It is not.
Not.
common misconception that a lot of people think.
Yeah.
The shortest way to get your citizenship done is actually through your local consulate. The way I explain it to people is it's one part of the government sending it directly to another part. So those get processed the fastest. Unfortunately, they don't do citizenship through a spouse or through a grandparents. And sometimes the consulates are just really busy and they don't have appointments available. So no, going to Lisbon is not the easiest way. It actually, you'll wait hours outside of the completorious to get it.
So I will say from personal experience also that, like Sabrina said, you get the number and you can check the status on the website, but after months and months and months where the marker has not moved, you start to panic and think, oh my God, is this going to progress at all? And so my husband actually went and stood in line in that hours-long line twice. And it's a good thing that he did, because the first time it turned out that there was one thing missing and I was like 2 days away from being denied and having to start all over again. And then the second time there was something else that we needed. So I would say, I don't know if you recommend this to your clients, but if you are going through a process that recommend that you have to go directly through Lisbon, either plan a visit to go stand in line and check on the status, or get a power of attorney of someone that lives in Lisbon and that can do that for you, because you can't just say, hey, Prima, go stand in line and ask. That person has to have permission to ask about the status, right? So just
lawyers say, they get there at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to wait to submit processes or to get a status update. So I wouldn't recommend, if you're going to Portugal on a trip, on a vacation, to do that. You're going to spend a lot of time and you might not get too far. So maybe get somebody else that might be able to assist you in that.
Right. Question about translation of documents. So if you are sending everything direct to Portugal, what has to be translated?
So if the documents are in English, technically they do not need to be translated if you are sending them to Portugal. Our office does do it because we think it works a little bit better if you have everything in Portuguese. They're able to do it a little bit quicker, but according to the Portuguese law on citizenship, any English documents, so anything written in English, does not have to be translated into Portuguese. If you were born in a country that obviously does not, English is not the language or Portuguese is not the primary language, then you are going to have to get those documents translated.
Right. Another question. The application for citizenship for your parents requires certified copies of my parents' documents. What would be considered a certified copy? I guess that would depend if it's a Portuguese document or an American document, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it's a Portuguese document, then the certified copy would either come from the civil registry office wherever they were born. So you can get that in Portugal, have somebody get it for you in Portugal. They just put a stamp on it. Or you can get that through your local consulate or the embassy as well. They're usually pretty good of getting that information to you. And the consulate or the embassy would just stamp it. If it's an American parent or a parent born outside of Portugal, then a certified copy is going to be a copy that comes from the state with an apostille on top. Some countries, though, do not have apostilles. They have what is called legalization. Canada, for example. So if you have a Canadian parent, there's no such thing as an apostille. They have the equivalent, which would be a legalization. So just kind of depends on the specific case, your specific parent.
Okay. Let's see. I'm a spouse. My long form birth certificate is on file from registering our marriage and for our kid citizenship. So does that count, or do they need to get another long form birth certificate?
As long as it has the marriage on the back of it, then that's all set.
Okay, great. Eric, that was for you. Let's see. We answered that one. So here's one that it's not really being addressed, I think, in any of our sessions. I was born in the Azores and I'm a Portuguese citizen, but I don't know my father. After doing 23andMe, found out I have a half brother born in Canada. He doesn't know our father either, and we have different mothers. Can my half-brother establish Portuguese citizenship through me, a half-brother, but all we have is DNA? How can we proceed?
So there is no citizenship
Path
pathway
for that?
go through a sibling. It has to be through a parent, through a spouse, through a grandparent. So if there's a Portuguese grandparent out there, then that would work. If not, there are other pathways to citizenship that you could look into, but it's not going to be through bloodline. Bloodline is only parents, grandparents, and spouse.
Okay. If my parents were never married, is there another process for children to apply for citizenship? Or do you just go through one and...
You would just go through one. There just depends on the state is the easiest way to say it. So Rhode Island actually has a birth certificate that says child of single parent or of single mother. So we have to get that specific birth certificate when it's from Rhode Island. If there is no marriage to be registered, then there's no marriage to be registered, and there's not really a proof of that. Most of the time, you can just prove that by providing identification for the single mother or for the single father, whatever the case is, to show that they never had the other person's last name. There's a couple of different ways to do it, but if the parents weren't married, there's no marriage to be done.
Okay. I think those are all the questions specific to the parents and spouse right now. One thing that I was told is the paper format, which is a very technical thing, right? The size of the paper that you print your application on. Does that matter? Because I know in Portugal, they use an A4 size, and that's not really something that we have here.
It doesn't necessarily matter. You just want to make sure that it doesn't cut off anything on the application, which is what tends to happen sometimes. You download the PDF off of the IRN website, right? And then when you go to print it out, it cuts something off on the bottom. Just make sure that what you downloaded looks like what you printed out. They do always laugh, though, when we send documents to them or when we go to hand documents in, because they're like, this paper is a weird size. We're like, your paper is a weird size.
So I guess you could print it on. I guess you could print it on legal size and then maybe just cut off the bottom if you wanted to do that. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sabrina. I think we can move on to our next presenter, who is Nelson Pontogarça. And he will be talking about getting citizenship through grandparents. So again, for those who asked about contacting our folks on the webinar today, if you actually go to the PALCUS website and go up to the top, resources, consular, you will actually see that they are listed here. We're still adding Nelson's information here. Website updates tend to be a little slow, but again, we will send out information to contact him as well. We also have some of the Q&As that we do on these webinars. We've actually written them out on our website, and so the ones from today will be added eventually. So you can always go find them there. And then, as we talked about before, being a PALCUS member can actually really help your citizenship process. So if you're looking to take the simple test, then you can practice your Portuguese during our language conversation groups. And if you are applying through a spouse, you can use our membership as a way to show connection to the community. And there's just some other benefits to being a member. And very easy, you go to our website, click on become a member, and signing up takes 5 minutes. And membership starts at $50 for the year, so quite affordable. There you go. And with that, say obrigado. For me, obrigada. So thank you so much to our panelists. It's such great information. I think things that we haven't really covered in detail in the past that we get lots of questions for. I know this is not going to be the last webinar that we have. So thank you all so much for your time. Really, really valuable. And thank you to all those who joined us either on Zoom or on Facebook. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us, reach out to our panelists, and good luck with your citizenship process application. Just stick with it. Eventually it will happen. And with that, we'll say have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Obrigado.